sang this song to me. There was a message in its melody, sweetest lyrics that I ever heard. There's a message in the songs of birds. He said, tomorrow is another day, living is the only way tomorrow's gonna ever come. Listen to the words of the song. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything is gonna be alright.
Good afternoon to all of the listeners and viewers of A Sip of Inspirations podcast. I want to thank you all for joining us again this Tuesday night. As you know, every other Tuesday, we try to bring you some information that will help you change your life, help you grow your business, help you change your mind, and just help you in general to live the life that I believe that you were created to live. As I always say, live the life you've imagined, dream big, and we're here tonight to help you do that. Joining me for tonight's session is Dr. Linda Williams, who's a service-disabled veteran with a doctorate in organizational leadership and management. She is also a certified black belt for the Lean Six Sigma program, and we've got to talk a little bit about that. She is going to share some successes and tools and tips to help you be successful with your small business, and especially during this era of the COVID-19 era. Also, she'll talk a little bit about funding and financing your business, which we know is a big issue for minority-owned businesses, and especially for women-owned minority businesses. So welcome, Dr. Williams.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Coleman. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So I have prepared for you, as you saw earlier, just a whole list of questions. And I'm sure as the audience joins in, there will be a lot more, because I do have a lot of followers who do own their own business. And in this time, it's difficult for some of them to stay fluid and to stay afloat. So the tips that you give us will be absolutely wonderful. So let's just get started with the first question.
All right.
So the first question is, how do I start a business in the COVID era? And what concerns and financial obstacles should I expect?
Well, COVID has affected certain industries more so than others. But believe it or not, third quarter this year, there were more applications to start a business, and I'll go back to that, because there was 1.6 million applications in the third quarter, which was 77% more than it was in the second quarter, and that was pre-COVID. So apparently people are focusing on doing their, opening up their own businesses and trying to figure out what's best for this time. COVID has put a lot of stress on certain industries more so than others. And some of the businesses have had to look at how they're going to realign. And some of those things are, moving to the internet, looking at different strategies that you can use if you're in the restaurant business or the bar business. A lot of times we don't look at how we can transfer that business should we get sick. And this is a time that looks like we're sick. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll put it in that manner. How we're going to run our business should that happen. But COVID is a little unique because it stopped movement of certain businesses. They couldn't open to the public, but they can go in to their businesses and continue to run them if they were restaurants and so forth without guests, which means that they had to be creative. I've had a couple of businesses that we were able to get financing for that have closed their businesses, in the sense no more indoor. service. They're strictly drive-throughs now,
Mm-hmm.
and opened up a second one because when they looked at the cost of, having the staff, of having tables, the cleaning, the inspections, they found that they were saving money in doing so. How good is that for our economic stance that we have to look at now as far as employees? Um, Not so good. That means a lot of people are going to be out of work in the future.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to realign themselves. Uh, the second part of your question, how do we function from day on as far as COVID is concerned? I think you need to sit down and plan. Whatever your future interest is, if it's business or to continue running your business, you have to think hard about what that means. Okay.
Okay.
Um, and you have to do your research. A lot of businesses, a lot of business minded people, they don't look around them and they don't look at what's going to place stress on their business other than COVID. And that was a big stressor. Um, so now that we know what something like this can do to your business, then preparation for the next go round of anything, you have to be prepared. Um, Money, loans, and this is a good time to get a loan because the interest rate is so low. You don't want a high interest loan. So you can look at different alternatives. You have secondary lending that you can go out and get. Um, there's an array of things how to reshape your business. Um, but I think that's pretty much it. You have the Black community and the Latino community that's suffering more because that community is facing more COVID cases.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, there's more businesses that are going out of business. So those are some of the things that uh, we have to focus on as a community and also give more advice to on how to handle situations like that because there's always going to be a community that suffers more than another community when it comes to business.
So you talked about COVID being a stressor on businesses, and you're right. No one knew to even plan for that. And you also mentioned that we do a poor job in planning for stressors on our businesses. So, what are some of the other stressors that business owners, especially small business owners, should consider when they start their businesses besides the pandemic?
Well, when you sit down and you do your business plan and your business proposal, you need to look at, first of all, how much of your life can you dedicate to this business financially? So if you have a minimum amount in the bank, your credit is not bad, but not good. Um, how much can you afford to risk? What do you need to break even and then to continue on to be successful in that field or that business? Um, and look at, you may need to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look at different companies throughout time that have, had to face challenges, and I'll use a simple one. We'll talk about Woolworths. We'll talk about Barbie dolls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And why I'm talking about those two things is I did a report on Woolworths because it seems like it was here forever and disappeared really quickly. You have to be careful how you realign your business. And when I say that, you have to do as much research on realignment because it is a new business, a new way of doing business before you do it.
Okay.
That's how Woolworths fell into disarray and end up closing in the United States anyway, because people are not aware that, Woolworths end up being the Foot Locker. If you remember the Foot Locker,
Yes,
um,
you're right.
Target
That's
bought
right.
part of it, Kmart, and so forth. Um, but the concept, the nickel, the 5 and 10 cent, is still around. You got what? The dollar store.
Hmm.
But they remain in the business that they're doing. Woolworths made that mistake. They tried to focus on, sports equipment and stuff like that, and they took away from their business model without doing the research.
Hmm.
Um, the Barbie dolls, going back to that, Ms. Handler, she looked at Barbie dolls, just starting it, looking at her daughter, you know, cutting out paper dolls. And they gave her a lot of grief over, because women were not astronauts. They were not nurses. They were not, even though, they were uh, nurses in World War II and World War One. But it wasn't something that we were believed that we can be successful in. And what's funny about that, because I like Barbie dolls, I'm an adult, but like I'm setting my granddaughter up with them because you look at how time evolves and how forward thinking evolves. It was 19, I want to say 79 or 80 when the Black Barbie was introduced. So they responded to what people wanted. Um, 2004 was when she came out with the first female president doll. Oh, wow. 2004. It took a little while, but, she was forward thinking. Um, so it's things like that you have to look at. 70% of businesses fail by the 10th year, okay? Um, which is not a good statistic, especially when you think you're doing well, but you have to change with the times.
Hmm.
A lot of businesses don't do that. Equipment, technology. We're living with the millennials. They like technology. They live on their iPhones. They do everything on different apps and so forth. So you have to progress with them, regardless if you're in a restaurant business or if you're selling socks. You have to go to where you can sell it.
Hmm. Oh, you're so right. So every so often, it would be wise for a business to review their business plan and model and check it against what's happening in the world to make sure they're keeping up.
That is correct.
Okay, so how often in your experience do we do that when we own our businesses?
Well, you know, it's easy to say it takes money to make money, and that's where all people tend to float around when you're talking about business. Uh, when I started in business, I worked full time, and I came home every day. And at that time, and never mind how old I am, but the yellow pages and the telephone and the newspaper were the ways to advertise. So I had to space myself out. I knew I couldn't. I was a single mom, couldn't spend all my money on my business. So I had to figure out some ways and means.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of things out there, guys and girls, that you can get a lot of free stuff. I bartered. There's city, state bartering associations, and if you don't know what bartering is, you trade for services. which means what I did back in that time, I think it was 2000 and, no, 1994, sorry, I'm trying to skip years. Uh, I used bartering to get my advertisement, and at that time, the apartment finder was a big, they had stands everywhere. So I cleaned for them. So I offered them cleaning so I could get the free advertisement, in their two or three of their uh, I'm sorry, two or three of their books that were coming out. So there are ways to do things, and regardless of what you do, if it's making pies at home, offer birthday parties. You do those for free, but you need some advertising, or you need a piece of equipment, not expensive equipment, of course. You may need a printer. So you want to do something for something, and it costs you no money. It just costs you your time or your product. Hmm.
That is a great idea. I never thought about that. So I'm making a note of that to share with my audience later. Now, you have a lot of experience in the government contracting world. So, what are some of the strategies for navigating government contracting?
Ooh, that's a big one. Um, okay, so I'll start with veterans. Okay, um, veterans have opportunities in the VA that no one else has. They have preference. The VA is the only entity that requires that by statute, which requires verification that you are a veteran, um, and you can use that verification to bid. Navigating the government can be a little bit intimidating if you don't know how and where to find the information. But, you know, the internet is your most friendly tool, and sometimes it can be your enemy, especially if you don't know the difference between truths and lies. But if you search government sources for small businesses, you'll get several pages of different um, organizations that are free. You should never pay for anything when it comes to the government, okay? Um, Unless you need some type of consulting on business, but government um, uh, offers a lot of free services. You have your Office of Small Business. Every federal agency has that. Every federal agency by law has to have that. The Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines. Um, People don't realize there's over 200 federal entities, okay? Because we don't hear about them. They're small. There are ways to do business by introduction, attending conferences that they have, um, not just sending something email. I think we've become a society where email is supposed to replace personal contact. A lot of times you don't get people answering the phone. But that's where persistence plays a good role. But navigating, you have your PTAX, you have your, those are procurement centers for the government um, contractor. And you have, of course, the SBA. You have your local uh, places that you can go for the city and the state. They have different programs as well. Your verifications, small business, 8A, minority owned, woman owned, economically disadvantaged women. Those are all certifications that come with logos that you can put on your literature and on your website that assist with gaining notice when you do your small business responses. Requests for quotes, requests for proposals, and of course, when you begin, you're going to need some assistance. And sometimes you have to hire somebody to do that. You're going to get free stuff that you can, ask for assistance with the different sources I just said. But there are things that you may want to do within your business or provide services, and just simply structure your business where you can provide those services and respond. So, to answer that question, I did on the front, and I'm going to say it on the back. It's not an easy navigation, but do your research, search, and talk to other businesses. Nobody can steal anything from you that you didn't have already. Okay, so um, uh, and a lot of large businesses are not intimidated by what you may be offering. And it's like anything else, you're not going to tell anyone all of your business, but it doesn't hurt to ask someone how to be successful, even if you don't tell them what you're doing, but to give you some business advice.
What are some of the opportunities that exist for veterans in the government space? Because I know a lot of people listening didn't realize that there were what would amount to set asides for veterans through the VA.
Well, the set asides are by statute, and after you get your verification, because you have to be verified in order to respond to those set asides. Set asides are designed to focus on first the service disabled veteran owned business and the veteran owned business. Okay. Other socioeconomic categories are not in that scenario. So if there's enough service disabled veterans, then the set aside will be for them only. If it's not enough service disabled veterans, then it will open up to veteran owned. Okay. But there are rules that you have to follow. Market research has to be done to make sure that you're capable to provide those businesses. To provide that business and be successful at it. Just because you are a veteran doesn't mean that it's going to be set aside without the guarantee of you being able to be successful and, procuring that job.
Okay, next question. Marketing methodologies. Now, we talked about small businesses reaching out to all of the procurement space, but now to the government procurement space in particular. So what methodologies should they use if they have a small budget, and how do they grow? How do they grow? Because a lot of people are starting, but some small businesses get started and they can never get over that hump. And then there's some who just want to stay small because they realize that that's where the set asides are.
Okay, so are you talking about the government space, or are you talking about space in general for small businesses?
So let's talk about both. Because I know they're different, and a lot of people think that you do the same thing in the open market space as opposed to the government space, and maybe your tactics need to be different depending upon what
Well,
marketing.
let's say slightly, not much,
Oh, okay.
because RFPs and RFIs are done by regular businesses to the general public. It is a tedious job, but you have to sit down. First of all, you don't want all government business, okay? Because every year there's a referendum. So next year there may not be money for that particular solicitation or service that you're providing. You never, you never encircle one sector of anything to make your business successful. You need to diversify. So you have a little bit of government here, a little bit of state, a little bit of city, and private business. When I had government contracts, I didn't do that till later on down in my career because I had enough private business. I actually didn't have time to deal with government because at that time I had not dealt with the government. I saw those clauses and I was like, not today. Um, So I stayed away from it. So once I sat down and I understood, I worked with a consultant to explain to me exactly how I needed to respond to do my templates. Um, uh, I responded and I won it. Um, so you have to diversify your field. People think, having government contracts is going to make them rich or become billionaires. And in some cases, it may, but those are certain fields and it takes a little while. There's nobody that's going to give you a $1 zillion contract and you only have one person and you've never had business before. Okay, so you have to stay within the perimeters that you can be successful in and not close the doors to that success if you don't perform. Okay. Now, flipping over to the civilian side, there are so many opportunities out there with the city and the state. It's been since I left the state of North Carolina and stopped doing business with the government, I still get solicitations. And you have to open up your door as well. And when I say that, everything that you do, you can provide to the government, but your primary focus is your business. Okay, and I'll give you a good look at that. When I registered for every city and every state. That took me, I want to say 90 to 180 days, because that's a lot with
Mhm.
the passwords, going in and clicking on such and such and such and such. But I had an IT background, so before they installed the lottery for North Carolina, they called me and asked me or sent me a bid to install their ID system. I did. I bought the equipment. I went up, installed it. When I walked out, they gave me my check. That had nothing to do with the business that I was in. But because I checked that box, I know how to do this. So should they need services in that area, I can provide them as an individual. I don't have to use my people for that, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so those are some of the things I've done. The uh, just a little bit of everything from entertainment folks to uh, the Black Soul Circus to everything. So when you do good work, your name gets out there, um, and people call. It takes a little while. I started my kitchen table, and I moved into my first office with that little round kitchen table and enough space for one person with plastic chairs. Okay, so, but within that year, I had two officers, and within that second year, I had a whole wing. So, you just have to focus and never encircle your world around just one particular segment of the government or of the state or the city.
Okay, so you have to make sure your marketing basket is diversified.
Hmm.
So so I know you help with funding. So how does a small business find funding for equipment, office supplies, and office space that they may need, or just funding for startup capital?
Okay, so this is where you have to be creative. Of course, my company offers all of those things, factoring funding, government services and so forth. But there are times that you can't take on any more financial strain.
Mhm.
So one of the things that you can do is any contracts that you have, you can, or that you're getting ready to sign, you can use a factorer. I did. And where that comes into play in your business model. For instance, with the government, you're allowed to have a factorer, and all they are, people have a bad, I don't know, a bad outlook when they think about factoring. Factoring is nothing but someone paying your payroll and so forth, um, until you can. And they only take a small amount. They do your taxes, something that you really don't want to do. They take that out. They pay your payroll weekly, whereas you may not be able to pay them for 90 days, okay, if you did it on your own. So you're talking anywhere from 1% to 7%. It's not a high rate, but it's worth it because you don't have to worry about that. That's filtering money into your business because after they take their little money, they send you a check that month. But you're not worried about, like I said, the payroll, the taxes, because the IRS is going to get their money, and other simple supplies that you need. Um, Being creative, you have to. I spent a lot of time um, trying to figure out how to do things that was going to be most, economical for me in my situation. Um, we'll take employees. Okay, so you need some employees to help you, but you don't have full-time work. So nobody wants to stay around, but you have these 5 people that you really love to death and you want to be able to reach out to them and pay them properly.
Mm-hmm.
So you go out, you talk to some of the temporary service agencies, okay? You tell them what you want to do. You take those 5 people, have them register with that temp agency. That way they'll get paid every week. You pay that bill every month, okay?
Mm-hmm.
One if you use them,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So insurance, once again, you don't have to worry about. Benefits, you don't have to worry about. But you pay if you want to pay them $11 an hour, for instance, the temp service may cost you $14 an hour, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really going to cost you more than those $2 or $3 to have workman's comp, general liability, payroll taxes, and provide them with anything else that your company would like to provide, insurance and so forth. Um, it's an economical way of doing things. Uh, and that way they can do other work, okay? But knowing when they do come and work for you because you're so small that they will be paid, okay?
Okay.
So
That's
there's different
great.
things.
Yeah, that's great. So what about, say, furniture? Is there a place, are they able to get furniture in places or rent furniture? Because sometimes that's an issue with startups also,
Now you mean furnishing
their offices.
their offices? That's where you barter.
Okay.
You can barter for that. There's a lot of different organizations that are bartering for services, not just the small businesses. You have large businesses as well. Um, so you can barter for that, or you have to talk to people.
Mhm.
For instance, my second business that I opened to supplement my first business, I needed vehicles because they drove all night long and they had to go from over 3 or 4 counties and make those rounds every hour and hours, wearing out cars. Okay, I couldn't get any more cars because I was single, and people would look at my income and say, hey, even though I knew I could pay, um, they have their ratio and loan to, value and stuff like that. So I went out and I found me a dealer, that had used cars, and I took the cars that were 90 to say 150,000 miles on them and paid 1/3 of the price. And I began to buy because I ended up with 10 vehicles to service my business and rotated them out. But you have to go out and talk to people. You have to build a relationship. For my gas, the place that I went to get gas all the time, I asked to open an account. I was spending $1,500, $1,600 on gas. So he agreed to bill me every 45 days to pay my bill. That gave me time, but I paid him every 2 weeks. But if I couldn't because I needed to buy clothing, then I had 45 days,
Mhm.
you see. So people will offer you things and help you along the way if you just go out and talk to them. But make sure that you don't X your relationship by not paying, the people back
Mhm.
or just being pleasant. Uh, that'll open a lot of doors. You can go rent furniture. Um, and people don't realize unless you're opening up a restaurant, you can go over to the college. They're giving away stuff. Your desk, that's where I went and got my first desk and stuff. I paid $10 and had an executive desk because every year the government buys something new, state, local, city. So you
Right.
just need to know where their salvage place is. Because it says salvage, most of that stuff is not salvage. And you can go over there and get a desk, you can get chairs, you can get bookcases, all of those things. When it comes to restaurant equipment, it may be a little bit harder to find at a cheaper price. But you can put an ad out on these different forums. You can look at Craigslist. Just don't go by yourself. And
That's right. Don't by yourself.
don't go by yourself. And there's, we do that. We give you the money for that. Um, of course, there's qualifiers for everything, but when you go to the secondary lending stores, you have a choice of what you want to pay. And some of my lenders are bankers, so building that relationship in your business, if you're a minority, if you are a woman, um, uh, there are things out there for you that are not for the anything other than, okay? So you just have to know where to find them.
I know that even the federal government has a website for excess property that, like you said, they buy stuff all the time and they're putting it out there for the general public to bid on and buy. So
Yeah,
places,
equipment and everything else. They even have buildings that are located in several different spots that they are rent for. You can buy for cheap. Some of them are historic, so all you got to do is keep them up. On the outside, you can't make any changes to the outside, but the inside you can. And you have to be creative. If you live out in the middle of nowhere in the country, build your shop right there. If you're into building things and shipping,
mhm.
um, even if it's a restaurant, if you want to take part of your land, if you got a couple acres and build a restaurant, look around and see who likes what. How far are you from the city? And use your land as collateral.
Mhm.
There are different ways to be creative.
Now, uh, you own FGBMC. Tell us about
Don't say it too fast.
that's right. Can't do it 3 times in a row. So FGBMC, which is Funding Government Business Money Consulting. So tell us about that.
Okay, I created FGBMC along with my FGBMC extension training, which is another um, uh, entity, but to give women and minorities and all of the other socioeconomic categories that have been left out of the lending arena. And when I say that, women haven't been focused on as a whole. Then you have the sublets of those Asian, you have Black, you have white women that don't get the same treatment when they walk in the bank. You know, especially depending on the type of business you have. Um, uh, you just don't have the same opportunity. If you're working at construction and you walk in a bank and you have on your hard hat and you say that you're in the construction business, you can imagine how you're going to get looked at.
Mhm.
However, you may be doing $1 million in construction each year, but you're going to be scrutinized. You know, are they going to be successful because they're women? There's a, a solid reason for me doing that, and to give education, to find the sources that are needed for this type of lending, and to provide um, those particular groups. And I'm open to every business. However, my focus is on women as a whole, um, and to provide them with the opportunities they need, to teach them how to do business, teach them how to expand their business, um, find the lending sources. If you dream of owning 500 buildings, then I'm going to teach you how to start with that one and continue on and find the funding, or tell you what you need to do to get it. Everything is not based on credit, okay? There are things that are based on what you have
Mhm.
already, okay? You don't have to put the fourth mortgage on your house. You don't have to do a lot of things that people think you have to do. But education is the key. And when I say that, education about what you want to do
Mhm.
and the full spectrum of your competitors, your growth, um, and keep in mind at all times and hang on the back of your door, 70% of all businesses fail. Are you going to be in that 30%? And what is it going to take for you to stay in that 30%? So you have to sit down and realize those things, um, and make sure that you follow them.
Share one of your success stories with us of the business that you've worked with.
Well, I say I have several. When I
Sure.
started my first business, it was commercial cleaning back in 1992. Um, and like I said, at that time, it was the time of phone books, and you go home, you go through the yellow pages, and which I did. I went through the yellow pages, and I was lucky enough when I got to the D's for one of the colleges to call me, and that was my first major contract. Um, and I figured out my staffing using temp services. Um, I made a relationship with a stripper, a buff, getting my equipment. And then 2 years later, I bought a franchise, a commercial cleaning franchise.
Mhm.
So you just have to plan. You can't have it all at once. My second business was security guard and patrol. So I started that, and I went from working at my kitchen table uh, to too many employees, got up to 90. And it was really a challenge. The service business is something that you have to look at closely, because you're going to deal with people. Your management skills, your everyday relationship with your customers is important. So if it's something that your personality tells you that you don't like to be bothered, then the service business is not you, where you come in contact with people face to face every day. You need to restructure uh, your thinking to doing something that's going to make you happy. But my success stories, I think those businesses are my success because I look at not having any loans from anyone, never. Working and, supporting a business, balancing my rent, my car payment, and so forth, and buying a little bit here, a little bit there, making deals and all of those things. Um, so I think that was successful for me, especially being a single parent with a young girl, who was in every activity that she can find, and there was no internet at that time, and thank God it wasn't. So, I had to balance. Um, and when it comes to other businesses in themselves, I think the biggest one for me was helping to open a restaurant. Um, and that was just sitting down in conversation with him. He was doing a specialized restaurant, so I gave him ideas on what he should do. Um, he was from Italy, so he had special dishes that he wanted to do. I was his taster, and half of them went in the trash because American taste buds are different than Italian taste buds. So you know, I had to be clear with him, his presentation, because he had not owned a restaurant. But he ended up opening up two or three, and we talked to today. So it's those are the type of successes I look at, and just talking to people, giving them advice. I do that on a daily basis. And it's important to me to share. As I said, you can't take something from me that's mine. And my knowledge is always mine, so
True.
that's my success.
I have one question, and one thing we talked about and sort of a little bit was bonding.
Mhm.
Some contracts require small businesses to bond. So how do they go about bonding? And a lot of times the percentages of a bonding is incredibly expensive. So how should a small business approach bonding opportunities and when to access them?
All right, so that's a loaded question. There's over 25,000 different kinds of bonding.
Oh yeah, that's real. Okay. Let's do
Well,
the simple one. Construction bonding.
so,
Construction bonding. Let's take a
so we're gonna focus on the industries that you're probably talking about: construction,
Mhm.
um, commercial cleaning. It depends on what you're doing. Some companies require you to be bonded when you're cleaning up construction sites. Um, so you have to do your research. A lot of times, bonding you don't have to have, but a part of that money in the bank for them to match. And usually, it can be anywhere from 5 to 10% of that money. And bonding in other cases is just insurance policies that you have. I have, it's a form of a bond. It's, for consulting and my other business activities. And, you have to find what's best. And things are a little bit different now, where you have selections. You don't have people that are cornering the market that are offering you just the same thing across the board,
Mhm.
you know. So you have to look. It's not expensive if you're going to take on a job that say 5 million. In construction, most jobs are not small. Then that's where you combine them both. You may need bonding, but then you go do some factoring for your business, your construction business. If you're doing a restaurant, then you do some other type of funding, to help you pay for those policies, or that bond. So it depends on what you're doing and how you want to do it, and that's why you talk to someone um, to learn how to structure your business. You have your uh, consultants, you have your CPAs, you have your attorneys. Um, so, and that, that's a lot of what I have. I have an attorney on my site as an entrepreneur, and, he provides advice.
Hmm.
Um, you got credit problems, you can go on my site. I've made an arrangement with a credit agency, a third party. Um, you sit down and figure out what you need to do and what size job you need to take to begin with before you go to look for bonding. Okay.
And what's your website? How do they get to your website?
FGBMC.com. That's Frank, George, Bravo, M as in Mary, C as in Charlie.com.
Okay. Now, in your bio, you are certified as a black belt in Six Sigma techniques. Tell us about that. That's incredibly interesting.
Oh God, that was a headache. Um, I was logistics by trade. So when I was in the military, I did logistics. When I got out, I was in logistics field and associated my world around that. However, Six Sigma helped me focus because that was by Motorola and that's their trademark, the Lean Six Sigma. Um, but it's good. You can use it in all businesses, and it looks at waste. And I'll give you an instance. If you're serving meals at a restaurant and the portions are, you have measuring for your portions, and for some reason you've decided that those portions are supposed to equal these many plates, and it's not happening, so something is wrong. There may be a variance in there that you need to pay attention to, and you give a little bit, but you may need to realign because what you assume is there may not be there. So it's a measurement, um, and it's a failure rate that's attached to that. So it's a little bit long and extensive, but it all depends on what you do. It's to improve your customer quality, and having the knowledge of what you need to do to create a lean process. You have bottles or beer that you're selling. If you have part of them running on the line and it's filling to the top, then part of them are filling 3/4 of the way full. What is that costing you? How much the waste? What is that costing you? So it's different things you look at depending on the industry. So that takes statistical analysis. It takes a whole lot of stuff. So some things are simple and some things are just common sense. You don't need a lean process to understand it. But if it's complex, you run the warehouse, you're doing distribution, stuff like that, that's where most of your lean processes are applied to.
And as a small business, and those listening who may be wanting to start a small business, what products and services do you find to be the most profitable for small businesses?
Well, that's also a loaded question.
I'm full of them.
Yeah, today. Uh, okay, so let's do COVID. And the reason why I said that is because we're in a time, where you have to restructure. And if you're opening up a business, what can you do today that is different, or doesn't need you to open up a place to be successful? And that's technology. It's real estate, um, anything financially based. Okay, so those are just some of the few. I haven't sat down and looked at research lately to look at the statistical analysis of what's good during this time, but I do mailings and I look at UCC filings and so forth to give me a outlook on who's out there doing what
Mhm.
and uh, and where, because location. Okay. Customer, customer. Every business has to be customer focused. And what do you offer? Just because there's a Amazon out there, can you not do the same thing on a smaller scale to service a particular city or state? Because Amazon wasn't prepared either. Okay. My 2 day turned into 6 days. Okay. So
Okay.
even the biggest company was not prepared for this time. Um, so you have to look at those things that are first of all giving money. Technology, new technology. You have all federal agencies have some type of new technology program. They're looking for proposals.
Mhm.
Um, you have grants that are focused on technology based innovation um, ideas. Um, there, if you look at the grant website and look at the things that the government is asking for, that'll give you a good idea of what you should start business wise because it's in the uh, funnel to become more popular later on. And do your homework. Is real estate good in your area? Do you want to buy buildings? Do you want to buy properties? Um, Sometimes, like I said, we have to get together with others. And also, it's not you, you don't jump out there and just open up a business. I've talked to a lot of people previously that have they just went out and someone told them their cookie was good, so they decided that they want to open up a cookie company, but had no distribution, no packaging, no idea of how to get someone to ship their stuff at a reduced rate. What time of the night? Do you do it on the weekend? Um, how do you wrap it?
Mhm.
You know. So there are things that you have to look at in order to be successful. And not saying that selling socks is not. You have a sock company out there that's doing fantastic with their socks. Um, but you have to know the other things that come along with it. And market research, your competitor, what are they doing right? Of course, you never know all their secrets, okay? But you can kind of make an assumption by how they are doing their distribution. Um, uh, I remember back when Amazon was before it was Amazon, and looking at online book companies, um, one of which he bought. Um, just looking at things in a way that what can you do with it that's going to fill a need, okay? Um, I look around at different things at home, and when my granddaughter is playing with the plastic bottle because it makes noise and a remote control, and she has 50 toys around her, but she wants the remote and she wants the plastic bottle so she can squeeze it because it looks like something that you use all the time. So I think about different things and how useful would it be and what's trademarked already. Do you need to buy a trademark from someone to trademark that property and go ahead on and make it? They may not have had enough money to do so, and they just trademark it.
Mhm.
Call them, see what you need to do to do business to create that product. So there's a lot of different things, and I don't think any market cannot, cannot be entered. You just need to know the research behind it and where to do it at.
Where to enter it.
So that's the most important.
Yes. Well, we are at the end of our time, and I want to thank you for sharing this great information with us. I have tons of notes, and I know those who are listening have tons of notes. So I want to remind the audience of your website. That's FGBMC, Foxtrot, Golf, Bravo, Mike, Charlie
Mm-hmm.
.com, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want you to go to the website and look around the website and take it all in, because she has a lot of great information. And feel free to follow up with her if this is something that you think you need to do. But I do believe that the ideas of thinking about what you need to do and how to enter the market are incredible conversations, incredibly important conversations that need to occur prior to going into business. So as we say goodnight, I want to remind you all to do not go gently into that good night. Find a hill worth dying for and take it. Be the person that you are waiting for and make today so awesome that yesterday gets jealous. And above all else, do it your way. I'm Stephanie Wilson-Coleman, the Empowerment Doctor, and life is too short to drink cheap champagne. You guys take care. Think tonight about what your step is going to be toward your business and toward changing the rest of your life. It's been great. Thank you, Dr. Williams, and I look forward to speaking
Thank
to you
you for
again.
inviting me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
But life's too short to drink cheap champagne, so I decided to buy me a better brand.